So this course is called Retreat Lab, and it's a course on leading and filling international retreats. It's something I've done for quite a long time. I've worked with healers and practitioners, educators to train them to be able to travel, to lead events, conferences, retreats, and also to market those events consciously and authentically. And you'll see a little image here from various events that I've put on. A lot of fun. I'd like to tell you a little bit about me first and how this all started. I grew up in New York organizing very large-scale events. We would do events for 7,000 people every month with a celebrity headliner. And it was a very fast-paced New York City event life. And there was a point where I realized the shift was needed. My body was really hurt. And I turned to integrative medicine to start healing. And working with some of the top doctors in the field, cleaning my body, I decided that this is my passion, this is what I want to pursue, and looked all around the world and ended up moving to Costa Rica to build a wellness and retreat center called Vida. The goal was just to help people prototype better ways of living and a better quality of life. And in the years after that, I would end up meeting a lot of doctors, a lot of teachers, practitioners of so many different modalities. And I also traveled to different wellness centers and retreat centers around the world. And I realized that I was surrounded by all these people who had such a profound impact on my life. And I just wanted to share that with others. And the way I knew how to do that was through the lens of experiences and events. And so in 2015, I launched Experience Vida, which is a company to produce and plan events and execute some of the best events in the world. And done a lot of them. It's been a lot of fun. They've been on everything from wellness to entrepreneurship, social impact, and a lot more. And I want to tell you a little bit more about this passion and kind of how it evolved. It was for them to earn a living while traveling to incredible places. They had a great time. They got to impact lives. I've also seen how hard it was after working with so many healers and teachers to grow their digital presence, to do their retreats, take their practices live. And I realized how much they loved it. I mean, this was experiential education. People could really learn firsthand. It was very different than a classroom. And I wanted to see them focus on those strengths of what they had to teach, their subject matter, instead of worrying about how to plan a retreat or how to pull it off or how to fill it, and all the logistical headaches that come with it. And I've also learned a lot from mistakes and many positive and negative learnings over the years. And so I wanted to share that with them. Whether it was a huge event, a 7,000 person event, or whether it was a 20-person retreat, there's a lot of fundamentals there. So if you're listening and you're a coach or a teacher or a healer or any of these things, or just a leader in your field, and you want to bring a community of experts together, I think you'll enjoy this class because we'll go over some of the key ways to do that.
Ed, could you make sure that your screen share is still on? I don't know if they're still seeing it, but it kind of turned off on mine. So if you could jump back over and make sure that's sharing.
The screen share is not on. Let me share that.
All right. Awesome.
Awesome. Okay. Well, in case you didn't see, this was just a little touch of some of the events that we've put on in a little collage. And I'll just get back to where we were. So this came out a little bit pixelated, but I wanted to show you some more photos from our events. I'll get to those at the end. Today's class, I want to focus on 4 core pillars of this learning. We'll look at experience design, the process of before, during, and after events. We'll look at finances and cash flow, how you can budget and price your event. We'll go over marketing and sales strategies from Facebook to ambassador programs, affiliate programs, and finally, how to choose a venue, the places that have soul. So I want to start first with experience design. I think this is one of the most important processes in creating an event. And I use a design thinking process that I was taken through once a long time ago. And it begins with a rapid ideation session. before you start your event and you've named it and you've done anything of that, it starts with some sticky notes and it starts with some of your ideas. And the things to consider in experience design are what happens before your event, during, and after. So before your event, how do you interact with your audience? What do they get from you? Do they get an email? What does that email say? Do they get a postcard? Okay. How do you interact with them when they land and they get off the plane? How do you interact with them when they get to your venue? There's so much that we look at before an event, and we could really plan and design the right way if we took the time to do it. And during an event, we look at everything from the check-in process to the checkout. We look at the opening and closing ceremonies. We look at the schedule. We'll look at all of the different parts of the experience design during the event, including free time and everything possible to ensure that we've planned out the most possible in our event. And finally, after our event, we'll look at what happens when our audience has left. How do we stay in touch? How do we form a community that thrives? You know, how does the process of once they leave your event occur? And so we'll look a little deeper into that now. So one of the common things that is part of a lot of these events is a pre-arrival welcome package. And I show you one here. It's a sample from one of our events. You know, it's a little PDF email. It shows what you need to bring. It's a little welcome pack. It also shows the schedule of the day, gives people a sense of what they're getting into. A lot of times people are leaving their comfort zones. So you really want to give them, not too much, but a little bit of a taste of what your experience will be like. This photo shows a tent because the event that we did in this time, everyone slept in these glamping safari tents. And don't forget to give them directions, which is quite important. I want to show you a little bit now about experience design when it comes into the space. So you'll see a sketch on the left, and one of our events had hired an interior designer who works with a lot of events to plan the whole design aesthetic of the event. So you'll see this beautiful tree and all these notes that she took. It was incredible. She executed one of the nicest experience designs, physical designs I've seen, and created this mood board with color palettes she liked, the carpeting, the beds. It's just to give a look and feel to the event and guide the aesthetics. And not all events do this, but I thought it was a nice touch, and I think where possible, serious event or retreat, bringing on a little bit of design, spatial design thinking, artistic design, it really helps a lot. We spoke a little bit about the experience design during an event. This is an example of a schedule of an event. You'll notice that it shows in green the kind of our pre-arrival for the staff. It shows when speakers arrive, how we host the speakers, a little welcome to the event. And then it gets right into the event schedule. And you'll see that we prepare for the guest arrivals, the check-in process. You know, that process takes a little time. Guests have to get their room. They get a little gift bag usually. It's really nice to make some kind of swag bag or gift bag for the people who arrive at your event. And we start programming in the first day very lightly. With a little hangout for sunset in this case, and an opening dinner. Don't want to over-program, just want them to start opening up, start icebreakers, start people talking, and create a sense of intimacy, create a sense of familiarity. And on the opening day, we usually have some form of opening ceremony. I'm going to hope that the photos showed up from before, and I'll show you some of those examples of opening and closing ceremonies. An opening ceremony really ties people in. It's usually a few words from the person putting on the retreat or event. Sometimes a healer or practitioner of some kind does a few things, a meditation, something to bring people together and feel like they're about to go on the most amazing journey in their lives together. And usually after the closing ceremony, in a lot of our events, we go to a fire pit, do a little song around the fire. We've seen intentions that people throw in and write on a piece of paper and throw in. And then it's a festive night usually. There's some music, there's some dinner, there's some partying, letting people just have fun. And that's usually the typical arrival day. And then it gets into programming. It's super important that you realize that arrival day and departure day Very hard to get any programming in. These are usually half days. People arrive sometimes at different times, like a morning shuttle and an afternoon shuttle, because flight times were different. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the logistics of, how to arrange everyone's flight times getting in, and how to arrange the transport, how to send someone to the airport to greet them versus just putting them on a bus. But let's look a little bit into the schedule here. So in this schedule, we have some time for morning yoga and Tai Chi. Then people go to shower and have breakfast. And we get into the content at about, looks like 9 o'clock, the first workshop start. So we do about an hour of workshop in this event, a half-hour layover, another workshop, and then in the afternoon, we go into our talks. This event was designed half like a TED Talk, where people share their stories instead of their big ideas, and some practical in-person workshops, some hands-on workshops. So we didn't want to bombard everyone with too much time of listening to talks. They get tired. So we broke them up with a little snack break in between. And then at the end of about 2 hours, there's an hour of talks, a break, and another hour of talks. We have sunset. People are just hanging out. We leave free time. I think one of the biggest takeaways always is to leave enough free time. I've seen countless events that are just so programmed that, you kind of miss the magic. A lot of the best things that happen to me at events weren't during the sessions, but were during those times by the fire pit or somewhere else where you had that one interaction that changed your life. You made that connection that formed a new business idea. You made a friend for life. Whatever it was, it happens often in the unprogrammed times. So we leave a lot of time in the events that I produce for that. We even had one event where it was completely unprogrammed. There was a process in the beginning where the actual guests got to create the programming and what they wanted to talk about. And moving on, we have a dinner at night. Usually we set our dinners at 7 o'clock, but it changes every event. And we have some kind of evening fun, be it music or a special act. We've had theater performances, fire spinners, a ton of things. But the point is, at night, people just want to have fun. And so this event, you'll see basically it's 2 days of content and then a closing process where people wake up, they have breakfast on the last day, and they have some closing comments usually from the founders or the person throwing the retreat, and give some hugs and do a closing ceremony and then check out. The closing ceremony is super important because it really brings people together at the end, and you've just been on an incredible journey together. It's so important how you close it, and we'll go a little bit into that. And at the end of the schedule here, it shows the staff lunch and the staff hurrah. It's really important too, not just about the attendees, but your team, whoever you're doing your events or retreats with. Make sure you throw a very good post-event celebration. It could be a calm dinner, it could be anything, but really treat your staff well after the event once all the guests have gone. So I'm going to jump forward here a little bit. This slide shows an example of talks and workshops. On the left, it's an example of a full talk. This was given by our friend Jessai. It was a talk on public speaking and theater and his experience. And on the right is an example of a workshop. In this case, it's much smaller. It's very hands-on. The presenter has some things behind that they're showing, but it's a practicum, and it's something that's usually a little different than a talk. Some of them are quite physical, in fact, and we've seen a variety of workshops that were powerful. I think it's important to divide the two because you can be giving people a lot of content, just information, but actual practice, actually being able to do something and lead someone through a process, be it physical, mental, but where you're communicating not at them, but with them, where you're learning as a group. That's a very important thing. And in experiential education, that's the beauty. You get to experience it. You get to be with your audience live and really interact with them, listen to them. So just wanted to show you a photo of that. And a little bit of lessons and learnings from experience design. Give yourself time to plan and market the event. So we're talking about the pre-event process. Usually I give myself 3 to 4 months minimum on any event. I've done events in less time, in 1 to 2 months, but really it's ideal if you can give yourself 3 to 4 months. Somebody asked me if they needed a year. I said, if you don't have your content for your event ready, or you have to plan what you want to teach, sure, maybe you want to take more time. But if you're ready with what you want to do during your event, a 3 to 4 month process is a good enough window for marketing and to prepare everything logistically and with production, and give people enough time to buy their flights and everything else they're going to need to do. Think about your entire user experience is the next point. We kind of discussed that, but really think about everything from beginning to end. Imagine how the user first interacts with you from that first email to the very last post-event follow-up where you send them photos and you send them the private Facebook group. Every single step of this process, your users will be going through. So in design thinking, we really like to look at the entire user experience and make sure you get them everything they need ahead of time. Logistics, forms, we have some of that info and examples later, but it's a lot of headache when you need to gather that when they arrive. Definitely create a space for intimacy and community to form. We talked about that, and using opening and closing ceremony rituals is a great way to do it. Not over programming is something we discussed, and one of the things we didn't mention is staying on schedule. It's really easy to get off schedule in an event. Almost every event that I've done, I have someone who's an MC or someone who keeps people on schedule, someone who helps people move from one thing to another and says, hey, right now we're doing a workshop under the tree, or we're doing this talk over there. So having an MC, having someone to keep you on schedule is super important, and one little delay in event often ripples through, and the last person to get mad is usually the kitchen because we're late for dinner. So try to stay on schedule. And I wanted to touch on health and wellness a little bit, not go too deep into it, but health and wellness, just as sustainability, is a critical part of almost every retreat or event I've ever done. People need to feel good and thrive, no matter what your subject matter is. So whether it's morning yoga, whether it's Tai Chi, meditation, whether it's the food you serve and having a vegan or a whole foods plant-based diet, whatever it is, really consider the health and wellness of your event, because it's critical now. Every new event, every new retreat, even if it's not on this subject matter, in my opinion, should touch on it a little bit. You don't have to go extreme, but really allow people the options of eating vegetarian and eating regular. Really allow people the practitioners that will teach them things to relax, ways to meditate, whatever it is that you resonate with, just keep it in mind. Wow, now we're going to go to a topic that's sometimes uncomfortable for people, finances and cash flow. I'm going to mention a few of the lessons in the beginning, but budget everything, test every scenario possible, be prepared for changes. In events, unlike most businesses, in retreats, cash flows change. They change up to the day of the event. You can ask Theo or Garrett or anyone else who I've done an event with. You could budget all you want, but it'll change. And so I show a little bit of an example of one of the calculators we use. I give this template out for people I work with, and I help them create their own templates. We're going to go through it in a second, but the template will allow at the end for us to price the event accordingly. And it'll also eventually allow us to understand cash flow. Cash flow is critical because you might be selling your event online and people have paid you in PayPal, but you are now in another country and you need to pay your vendors. And you have to get from PayPal to your bank account and either bring cash or wire it or do whatever you have to do. We'll go a little bit into that, but cash flow is critical because if you don't have enough cash reserve or you haven't collected payment ahead of time, it's really hard, especially a lot of events. I know the last 2 weeks they do most of their sales. So you have to have a way to have already gotten enough cash either with you or transferred somewhere where you know that you can pay the hotel, you can pay your vendors, you can pay the chef. And we'll look a little bit into that right now. If we look at this calculator, you'll see on the top I just put number of nights and the quantity of people. When I adjust any of those, my entire budget adjusts. And so I can see what the difference of doing a 20-person event or a 40-person event is. I can see what happens if I do 4 nights or 5 nights. And if I don't sell enough, I can put a number in there that's called worst case scenario, and just put quantity of people 5 or 10 and see at what point is my event even feasible. If I need to sell more than 5 tickets for it to work, or I need to sell 10 tickets, I need to know that number. And that's critical for planning the event. So this is a very basic spreadsheet, but it shows us basically per person the cost of accommodations, how much this event is paying as a site fee, and how much they're paying per person for food. You know, every event has different hotel accommodations or retreat centers or conference centers. So, you know, in this one, we look at a $65 per person a night hotel, a site fee of $2,500, which is very normal. Some are way higher, some are lower. And food, you know, again, it depends on your chef. It could range from $20 to $40 per person per day, all in with the chef's time and all the ingredients. You do want to find a chef who's cooked for these kind of groups before and set a budget with them ahead of time to be clear. And also don't forget to set a budget for your staff. That's one people forget about. You have to feed and accommodate your staff as well, your team, yourself, whoever's with you on this event. Some events have production. A lot of them climb very high. In our last event, Echo, you know, production could climb sometimes $10,000 to $15,000 because it's a huge event. It's over 100 people. On retreats, production might be some basic materials that you need and some extra rentals. Even if you're doing a wedding at a hotel, people often hire a wedding planner and get event rentals, get some extra things, tablecloths, more tables, some kind of lighting, banners, whatever it is. You should have some production budget. It could be very small, it could be larger. I just set an example here of $4,000 for a small event. And I also show here you have to have some form of an event producer, an event executor. I call them host operators sometimes, but usually those people, from my experience, charge anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 I've seen. I set an example of $2,500. This person does a lot of work. Often they're involved in the pre-event, making sure the build happens. When the guests get there, they're the person communicating between you and the guests and the hotel or the venue. It's really important because this person is literally your head of production. They're making sure everything is going on. They're waking up at 5 in the morning, making sure kitchen's ready, everything is ready. So I'd always budget in that person. And I also help people find that person when needed. Event planning and supervision, it's a process that I've done myself, and I also know some awesome event planners. This also comes at a cost, and it's usually the person who's working with you the 2-3 months before your event, and also making sure everything is working when the event is executed. Definitely don't forget to budget in film crew if you're planning to film your event. I think it's 100% critical to film your event. Even if you don't want to make some kind of product out of it or do something later with that film, at least it's a teaser and marketing material, and budget for this. Definitely budget for this. It's an amazing thing to give to the people who attended your event, and usually you can have photography and filming taken care of in a beautiful way. The budgets for this vary a lot. I've seen people spend $1,000 and give a good exchange. I've seen people spend $20,000. I've seen people spend even more. A lot of times you want to find a local film crew if you're doing an international event. If you're trying to save some money, it's a great way to do it. If not, you have to fly in a film crew, you have to feed them, you have to buy their flights. But I wouldn't underestimate this. I definitely think spending money on filming is super important. To go on with the budget, there's transport included here. There's speakers and practitioners. A lot of times events will need to bring on additional practitioners like the yoga teacher, etc. Again, these budgets vary. I have people I can call on for $500. I have people who charge me a couple grand. And it just depends on the event and the budget and what you can include. If you have a friend who's a yoga teacher and you want to give them a free spot at your event or some kind of exchange, that's awesome. But I always budget for it just in case. I included transport in the budget as well. You need to get people to and from the airport. Be very clear with people about transport. For example, in a lot of our events, we say there will be a shuttle waiting for you at this time. If somebody wants private transport, it's usually more expensive. So make it very clear to them that if they want to take their own transport, it'll be at their own expense. If not, they can catch these 2 shuttles. Otherwise, you'll be paying for a lot of taxis and trips. And other than the crew, food, and accommodation, I also included a little tour in this calculation to show people what it was like to include a zip lining tour and what that would do to the price. I think any tour that you offer, or any physical experience, you should build it into the event. People really shouldn't be spending money while they're at your retreat or event. That's just my opinion. It makes it a lot nicer. So when you can include the tour in the ticket cost, that's awesome. And obviously you could make any of these things optional. But let's take a look at the conclusion here, because this is the critical part. So we see that the total group cost is $30,000 for this event, about $1,300 per person. I've seen events that cost anywhere from $500 per person to actually costing $2,000 to $3,000 per person to produce. This is your cost. This is how much it costs you. This is your break even. If you want to give away any scholarships or any break even tickets, like tickets to friends or something like that, you know that you really can't go below this number. Again, this is just a spreadsheet that we made to show an example, but that number varies when I change any of these inputs. And usually the suggested retail for an event, the typical model in this industry is double the cost. So, you know, if it's a $1,200, $1,300 event, I modeled out what a $2,500 ticket would be. So a $2,500 ticket would gross this person $28,360. About 20% of that should be invested in marketing. So in this case, it's a $6,000 marketing budget, and we'll go into that, but I think it's super critical to invest in marketing. Still, even after spending that money, the person who's throwing this retreat would bring in $22,000. You know, even leave a couple $1,000s for mistakes and errors, that's still a very profitable retreat. And I've often seen two leaders of a retreat split that $20,000, $10,000 each, and that's an amazing amount of money to earn while traveling, teaching what you love. It's a great way to earn a living by taking a week out of your schedule or whatever amount of time and going to an exotic location and teaching people that which you're passionate about. Not all events make that much. A lot of my first events and still certain events that I'm part of, if it's a first event, just understand there will be things that you didn't expect. You might not make $20,000 on your first event. You might make a lot more. But just know that it's possible. Know that it's possible for almost anyone I've met to be able to pull this off, especially if they're passionate about what they do. One of the things that I think is super important about pricing your event is a lot of times people sell themselves short. They say, who's going to buy a ticket for $2,000 or $3,000? I saw somebody sell an event for $10,000 once and sold out the event. It's just what you value yourself at. It's what you are looking for in terms of your ideal avatar, your ideal person who's attending the event. Because the person who spends $2,500 and the person who spends $10,000 is quite different. Okay, but that person exists. There's a couple billion people in the world, and you have this thing called Facebook and emails, and you can reach anyone. So maybe you do an event that's priced at $5,000, and instead of selling 30 seats, you sold 15 seats, but it's less people. You can give more impactful content. You've charged more. People value it more. So just don't sell yourself short. It's pricing an event is something that I've seen people grow more and more comfortable with as they've done more of them, but you can also start out the get-go with a good price. And again, just realize the model is usually the ticket cost being twice the production cost. I'm sorry, twice the event cost. This is a quick example of a design budget that one of the designers of an event did for us. It showed everything from additional stage structures to these bells to these electronic lights and extra rugs. Look, you might do an event at a hotel that has everything you need, but almost always there's some design budget, something you want to include in this event. Could be prayer flags, it could be journals, it could be something, but make sure you have a detailed design and decor budget. Make sure you have a detailed production budget so you know everything that comes into your event. And if you have to order it on Amazon, make sure you know ahead of time so that you allow for shipping. I'm going to move on here. All right, let's talk about marketing and sales strategies. And I'm using an example from our friend Theo's event, Food is Medicine. The two first things that you need are a website, so people can go see your event. You can make these on Squarespace, Lead Pages. There's so many easy programs to make quick websites. And don't wait. Just put something up, put a photo, put the dates. On the left, you can see what this event started with. It was just a beautiful image, the name of the event, and the dates. And then on the right, you can see it went on to the full event. It shows a video. It shows you a full event site you could enter or how to join the mailing list of this event. So when looking at marketing and sales strategies, the beginning is you have to have some kind of product to let people know about it. And when you have that product, then you could use Facebook. I use an example of an event we just did in Costa Rica called Echo. We announced the event on a Facebook post. We showed a video from the last year's event and created a little teaser. And ideally, the result is what happens on the right of the screen. The event sells out, and you announce that too. Facebook is a great way to market your event. There are people who are experts at it. You can read about it online. Basically, you can create an advertisement strategy to find anyone who is a match for your event. Facebook allows you to profile pretty clearly. And so starting to market your event on Facebook is a great way to let people know about it, as well as sending an email to your entire email list, be it your personal list, your company list, with the same information, with your website, with what the event is about. When you announce the event, you want to announce it in as many places as possible. I'm going to show a slide that shows some lives that I did during an event just to build the energy. The first one got 6,000 views, which was pretty cool, and it wasn't done very professionally. I just walked around with the camera live. I did that before the event too, just to show people and build anticipation of the production. It's not a secret. You can show people what you're working on. You can show people how much energy you're putting into it. It makes them really understand and value what you're doing. And on the right, I showed an example of a talk at one of our events. A dear friend of mine, Henri Skarstruck, is a Grammy Award-winning producer and composer. And so just shared that with people, giving them some content. If it was pre-event, I can have him write an article, do something that I can give some content to people, share something of value. Even myself or whoever is leading some of the content, give a talk online, make a video, record a live, do whatever you can to start sharing with your audience. And we'll look a little bit into some of the key lessons and learnings. So you need a good website. We talked about that. Great imagery, great writing. And obviously then you can blast that out on Facebook and whatever else you use. One of the key things in marketing an event is you want people to sell it. You want people to feel rewarded for promoting your event. So think about a commission structure or a discount to some communities that you can offer. A commission structure might be something 10 to 20% to anyone who sells a ticket. It can also be, if there's a community, you give them a 20% discount to sharing that information with their network. I've done both. There are also affiliate structures where others will promote your events and you give them a commission. One way or another, reward the people who promote your events. It's important. Also, an ambassador program is critical. We'll go into that in a second. But one of the best things you could do is work with humans, work with people. I wasn't an expert in online marketing when I started my first event, and I still am not. I just know people. I find people, I see what they need. So talk to your key friends, talk to influencers, talk to community leaders that really like the work you're doing, and create some form of ambassador program. Create a couple people that can get the word out, maybe even get a free ticket if they invite enough people. You can be creative with it, but I don't think there's anything more powerful than human marketing when it actually comes to filling your event. Facebook will get you a ton of views and also sometimes convert a lot of sales, but the human marketing I've just seen from my experience is awesome. And talk about your event wherever you travel. Give talks, give lectures. The more you're sharing your passion, be it it's an event on yoga, or be it it's an event on nutrition, or any subject matter on social innovation and entrepreneurship, talk about that. Go give free lectures at co-working spaces, give a talk at a college, give a talk at anywhere that you think people care, and it'll help you. It'll help you practice what you do. And a lot of times, if you do one of these talks or something, if you can get some PR, if you can get an article written somewhere, it's really helpful, and you can share that. So it's a little bit of learnings from the marketing and sales strategies. It's one of the hardest things in an event. It gives people a lot of discomfort because as the event gets closer, they're worried about sales, but don't be worried about it. A lot of times, most of the sales happen in the last month. So even though you launch it 3 months ahead, give it time. The idea is that in the beginning, you get a few key people in so you know that you at least can break even on the event, that financially it's sustainable. So maybe giving away a few discounted tickets in the beginning, early bird special, something like that, so you can get those first sales in. But also recognize and don't be alarmed if most of the sales happen in the last month or last 2 weeks. It happens. That's why we tell people to prepare as much as they can ahead of time, but it does happen. So prepare for that. When I said cash flow, prepare that you have enough cash flow. If you haven't sold enough tickets, you might either have to cancel the event or you might need to have some cash reserves to give yourself those last 2-3 weeks of sales and get production going, get a deposit into your hotel. So when I work with people, I really help them kind of create cash flow and a budget that fits their event and different milestones to make sure that they're hitting the right numbers at the right time. And as things change, we look at that and we do different scenarios. So when I do an event, I have these templates and I share them with the people that I work with. I think it's critical. It's kind of like the one I showed you earlier, and I have ones that go way more in depth depending on the event. If it's a conference, the financials look a lot different. So going from marketing and sales strategies, let's move on a little bit. So obviously I'm a little partial because we have this beautiful location in Costa Rica, Puerto Vida, where I've done most of our events. In fact, in my case, was blessed with the physical place to do the events. So I wanted to create an experience laboratory, a place perfectly designed to do these events. And we didn't have the budget to build a fancy hotel, so ended up getting these safari tents and creating events with camping and this glamping, I guess is the term, this cool glamping experience where people are out in nature and they're really there for the content. They just go to bed at night, but still those glamping tents were beautiful. And you'll see in some of these pictures some ceremony spaces, people hanging out. You'll see some examples of beautiful food and a fireplace. It's so important to have a location that has the right mix for you. Sometimes a hotel can be very sterile. So we look at retreat centers, conference centers, even raw pieces of land. I worked for Burning Man for a year. I mean, this is an event for 70,000 people created in the desert. Literally nothing is there and nothing stays. The event is literally built from scratch, and it's a full city with everything, roads, lights, signs, you can't imagine. So a venue can be a hotel, a venue can be a retreat center, a venue can be a grass field. It's whatever you make of it and whatever you need. But make sure it has that magic. Make sure it has a soul. We had one event, the Global Peace Initiative of Women in January. It was a beautiful event, and I wanted to know how they liked the space. And they said, look, if we just did this at a regular hotel, it wouldn't have had the magic. We had this container to bring our group together, to bring some of our thought leaders together and really go inward as a community. And that brought music to my ears. That made me so happy because they understood that this place was designed in a way that had the event in mind, that had their needs in mind. You'll see little workshop spaces in some of these slides. It might be too small for you to see. I'm hoping the pictures work at the end. But a fire pit, some place where people can gather, nooks and crannies, little places where people can go disappear. And obviously a place where you can do most of the work. Presentation space where you might need a television or a projector. Things that you need to present, chairs, etc. So sometimes hotels don't always have conference rooms or event spaces. So be really mindful of that and be really mindful of where you choose the location, what countries people want to visit. Also, if you want to do your first event in your home country or you want to do an international event, it's easier, obviously, to do it in your home country. International events do take planning, do take a few different steps. But people have a thirst for experience and a thirst for travel. They say experience is the new luxury. So right now, retreat leaders that I know and teachers and practitioners, they also want to travel to these exotic destinations. So choose one that you like. Choose one that people resonate with. Doesn't matter where it is. But keep in mind also where your audience is coming from, how much their flights might cost, things like that. Also, just to show you an example that we don't always do retreats and events at our own retreat center, I've also done retreats and events at beautiful villas like this one in the picture. This is a villa designed for 24 people. A lot of our retreats and events are that size. If it was bigger, this villa wouldn't work. If it was smaller, it would work. It would just be very expensive. But this is a villa for a 5-star event. The cost of this location probably would make a $2,000 event prohibitive. It would probably be an event that have to be priced at $4,000 or $5,000 per ticket, and probably an event that's a little bit smaller in amount of people. But a location can be anything. This villa is inspiring, and I know a lot of people who want to do events at places like this, so I help them find these places and make sure they're suitable. But really look at the venue carefully. When I stayed at this venue, it made me feel like $1 million. I knew that it was an award-winning venue, and I wanted the people throwing retreats at that place to feel that way. I also wanted the people attending to feel that way. So for a very specific type of event or retreat where it merits it, you can go as high-end as you want. There's always someone who's interested in that. And if you want to go more bare bones and create an experience that's on the land, you can do that as well. I wanted to write a few key lessons and learnings here about the location. We've mentioned a few, but the most important one for me, and I keep repeating it, is that the place has soul. If it doesn't have soul, it's just going to be like another retreat, another event, and it's not going to stand out. And so today, when people are looking to host their retreats and events, I urge them to go explore, go see some of these places first, see how you feel at these places, see how well set up they are, see if they've handled retreats or events in the past. Because if they haven't, it might be kind of difficult. If they have, you might be in good hands. And ask them what services they offer. Do they have a dedicated events team? Do they offer catering? Do they offer rental? A lot of events you have to rent extra tables, chairs, etc. I often use weddings as a simple example of how much stuff you have to bring into a space. Some spaces have everything ready. Others need you to bring it all in, which will increase the production cost. So understand what the venue has. When I work with a client, I usually offer them venues that I know are good, or talk to venues on their behalf to make sure that it's a right fit. And make sure, and this is important especially if you're in the tropics, make sure your event has flexible spaces. So if you thought you were going to go give a lecture out on a field somewhere or out near the pool and it starts raining, make sure you have covered spaces. It sounds silly, but it really does come up. Make sure you have plans for things like rain and weather and what you'll do. Also understand what tours and adventures exist in the area when you're choosing a location. It's one of the first questions, so you could start pricing out those tours to see what you want to send your people on. You don't want to overfill the retreat or event with adventures, but it's also really nice to throw in one or two. People have come not just to learn, but they want to have fun. And so we threw in zip lining tours, trips to islands. We've done a lot of stuff in the past. And so make sure you understand what offerings exist in the area when you do an event. And also talk about the chefs that they have. You can fly in a guest chef. This is a big topic in events. People bring in famous chefs. If you have the budget to do so, awesome. But if you don't, and it's one of your first events, ask if the venue has a chef. Maybe try to see if you can get a tasting or see what kind of food that chef serves, and understand if you have to bring one in. You can find chefs in almost every country. You can find liaisons that will help you, even someone from the venue, chefs that they've worked with in the past. But it's important because you have to understand the kind of food you're going to be offering during an event, and it's usually very local, and you should keep that in mind as well. If you're doing an event in a foreign country, try to give people a taste of the local food there if you want. And if you're doing an event that has specific nutritional guidelines or something, maybe you don't, but make sure the food is spectacular. Make sure it's healthy, no matter what it is, even if it's not vegetarian or etc. Make sure the event is the food at the event is absolutely spectacular. I think it's so critical because people always ask that. That's one of our biggest takeaways. If an event didn't have good food or enough food or a variety of food or even snacks, we've heard people complain, and you just don't want to do that. So when it comes to the location, those are a few key learnings to keep in mind. Well, basically, I want to a little bit more now about the full course. This is a little bit some of the most important things that I find in events, and I wanted to share it with you in this class. So even those who can just make it to this class, at least you've gotten some value, and you've seen, I hope you've gotten some value. Maybe Garrett can see in the chat. But, you know, really the next step and something I've been working on is a full-on course, an online course where we teach this. We go through all of the steps. Let me see if I have it on the next slide. We go through a full curriculum of all the retreat and event wisdom, all of the templates that I have from budget to experience design I'll be giving you. I think I have something like 20 to 30 templates that took me a lot of events to create and will make your lives a lot easier.
Looks like we might have lost Ed there for a second. Can you all still hear him? One second. All right, everybody. It looks like we might have lost Ed for a second. I'm going to go ahead and try to pull him in here 1 second. Okay, looks like we're getting Ed back in right now. Sorry about that, everybody. He'll be switching over his webcam and finishing up right when he's talking about kind of the full overview of the course. So sorry about that, everybody, and I'm going to pass it back over to Ed. Make sure your mic is on as well, Ed, at the top.
Perfect. I was just saying that I'm better at events than I am at webinars, but let me finish up the presentation. I think we left off. Let me just share the screen with y'all. Here we go. And I'll get us to where we were. Garrett, I think it's working well this time.
Yep, we can all see good.
Perfect. So basically I was mentioning about the next step, about this online course that I formed. It's a product of a lot of passion and desire to help people do this. And was showing a little bit about what you get from the online course. So I'll go over it briefly, but you get a full curriculum of all the retreat and event wisdom that I've had over the years, and all of the templates from budget to experience design templates to help you. These have taken me 30, 40, 50 events to form, and I'll give them to you guys so that you can start with everything that I've learned from the beginning. Also, we'll be doing weekly calls, obviously, to make sure everyone's on track and answering messages and emails. It's a 10-week online course. So we'll be every week checking in and not just learning, but also focusing on planning your retreat or event, physically practicum on that, and going over different experiences that people in the class have had. And one of the more important things is access to our network of experts and teachers. We have a lot of people who we've worked with, people who do execution, production. We have other people who have thrown retreats and have taught in retreats. So having a network of peers to bounce ideas off is critical. And obviously access to our place, to our experience laboratory in Costa Rica at Puerto La Vida. It's not the only place we do retreats and events, but it's a place I designed for people to be able to do their first event. So people who take the online course, of course, will have access and priority at that place. And also have access to our private Facebook group and online community, which is awesome. And a reference guide to where to host their retreats or events. A lot of time people ask me, Ed, okay, you told me how to do an event and what it takes and how to plan it and budget it, but where do I do it? And so I've traveled the world, found so many cool retreat centers and places to do events. And so we'll be able to share that wisdom with you in the course. I wanted to run through the course curriculum, the topics really quickly so that you could have a sense of them, but it'll go from everything from naming your event, the topic and the messaging, choosing the location, building the right team and staffing, which is critical, building your tribe, deciding the size of the event and who's coming. We'll go over sales strategies that people use and finance and cash flow management. And obviously logistics, which is one of the scariest things. We didn't go too far into it this class, but don't worry, it's not that scary. But we'll talk about transport, logistics, visas, payments, everything that you need to think about in that regard. And food and beverage, dietary forms, allergies, have everything kind of set up that you can see typical forms. Event production and decor. One of the things I've been involved with the longest, and I've been blessed to work with great people. No matter how small or big the event, this is a part of it. Experience design, which we got a taste of today, but it really goes a lot deeper. We'll actually sketch out this whole process. Everyone will create an experience design for their event, a mock experience design, and I'll show some of the processes I've went through because I keep them all quite documented and maybe give some good ideas that will help you in your event. On the next page here, we have gathering methodologies. So the latest events are not just talks and lectures. There's storytelling. There's something called a fishbowl where everyone sits in a circle and a few people in the middle are speaking. There's hot seats. There's really cool gathering methodologies people are using, open space and many more. I've met people who specialize in these methodologies, like that's their career. So we're going to go over some of those and see if it's interesting to you. So you could bolster kind of your tool set. Speakers and facilitators will look a little bit into how to get the right people onto your event in addition to you. And filming and documenting, which we discussed today. Productization, which is the new hot thing, which is filming your event and then selling it after. You could film your event and just use that for marketing material, or you can spend the right amount of money and actually film your event professionally where the education can be sold. Sometimes it involves staying pre or post with a film crew and getting some shots, but it's a big topic now. So we'll go into that, and it's one of the latest ways people are really earning larger incomes on their events. Even to some case, people are doing events that break even because they know how much they make once it's productized. This has to be done in a classy way. It's not just about selling your event as much as you can, but I've seen it done authentically, and I've seen it done the right way. Sponsorships and partners we didn't touch on today, but you can get a lot of the stuff for your event sponsored, from yoga mats to rugs to whatever. So we'll look into that and how to reach those sponsors. Legal waivers and insurance, it's a headache for most people, so we just want to show you how it's done so you don't have to worry about it and what you'll need, and some examples. I give people templates of actual legal waivers I've seen. So I really like to just give that to them so they don't have to worry about it and hire lawyers. Task management and delegation, creating the right task system for any event, whether you use Asana, a Google spreadsheet, a piece of paper. There's a variety of task management and delegation techniques I've seen that are really helpful. And it also makes you understand how much of a team you're going to need, because if there's a task you don't want to do, there better be someone on your team who can do it. And I can't stress that enough. We've been blessed to work with a great team: Sylvia Ferrero, Meg Gardner, many more, Josiah James. I mean, it's amazing, the people that I've done events with and how indispensable their work is. The events can't happen if they don't do the work that they do. In some cases, they know now way more than me in terms of event production and certain parts of the event, the planning parts, whatever it is. It's so important to have that team in place, and really grateful that I've been working with great people. And when one of my clients needs it, I recommend them somebody who can help with that. Creating and maintaining a community year-round is super important. It's often the post-event analysis, which is the next point, and the metrics. You see, you take surveys, you see how people enjoyed the event, but you keep a community. That event is a tribe, and to maintain that community year-round is indispensable. Using Facebook groups, using physical meetups in cities. I've loved seeing in a Facebook group of an event like, hey everyone, I'm in New York, who's there? So keep that concept in mind. You really want to not just do an event, but create a community. When you've done a few events, you have a way larger community. They become your ambassadors. They become what makes it worth it for you. The last point is selling your next event. You know, it's one of the final topics we discussed, but how in finishing one event, you prepare for your next event. And let's see what else there is. All right, so I'm going to go a little bit into the cost of the course. So the cost of the course is $2,500 for the 10-week course, and it starts in August. It'll be the first course we offer. You can stay tuned. There might be some follow-up ones. The normal cost of the program is around $5,000. It'll probably save you thousands of dollars of more in mistakes. I could count the tens of thousands of dollars I've made in mistakes. So if you're interested in this course, I've tried to price it pretty fairly. If anyone needs some kind of payment plan or something, we can always discuss that. Right now, I'm only taking on 5 more people because a few have signed up already, and I want to give people the proper attention. Also, anyone who's in this group now, who's on this webinar, we'll be extending a 10% discount, and Garrett will give you more info after the presentation on how that all works. Again, you'll get all my templates. You'll get access to a private mastermind in Costa Rica. I haven't mentioned that yet, but I'll just touch on it. We're going to do a live version of the course as an event in Costa Rica in November. So anyone who can't make it to the online course, we're going to do a live event as well. It'll be probably a significant, more expensive event. I think it's going to be close to around $5,000, but it's really in person. We'll really go into it. But right now, I'm really eager to just start sharing this information with people. I've taught this class before. It's really fun. And everyone who's worked with me in the past on this has really gotten a lot more value than what they've invested. It's something that I hope everyone who's doing an event has the chance to learn in some way, shape, or form. And what else? Oh, and yeah, anyone who's listening to this, obviously you could take the online course, and as you're taking the course, if you need one-on-one help, if you need something else in that regard, I'm always available, and we can discuss that. I work with people one-on-one as well. I just don't have that much time to do it, so I only take on 1 to 2 clients at a time. So let's see. Well, I think now is the time to open it up for Q&A. And I'm going to switch over to Garrett here. Let's see how I can do that. Let's see.
Thank you for the presentation, Ed. Really enjoyed it. I got a few questions waiting for you, but seems like it went well. So one of the first questions that we had was about what the budgeting of the cash flow looks like. Is that a certain percentage, or is that a certain like number you have in mind whenever you're putting a retreat together? Because I know you spoke about there's some unexpected costs. So do you have a certain number in mind when it comes to that?
When it comes to having the appropriate reserve budget,
Yep.
I guess is the question. Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, I like to keep a reserve. The break-even cost is of the event. It all depends on how much you have to give the hotel in deposit. So in each case, it's customized. It's hard to give like a generalistic answer to that. But usually I like to look at a 20% budget, 20% reserve. The cash flow is the more important part, because when you have a schedule of payments you have to make, you need to know that well in advance. So usually as long as you have enough to give a deposit, the rest becomes pretty good.
Awesome. So you kind of spoke about it briefly in the webinar about advertising and kind of the easiest way to go about doing that. So if you kind of want to go over that subject just like for a little bit more, like what the first steps you would take when it came to advertising your next event.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the simplest forms of advertising are Facebook. You make an ad, you boost it, your own Facebook, writing on other people's blogs and existing communities. I think before you go into advertising and spending a lot of money, see what you have at your disposal. See if your friends could blast out the event. See if you can get featured on someone else's website or blog talking about what you love. And then there's straight up advertisement. You can invest in Facebook ads. You can also create advertising partnerships where you write articles that are on websites that are trafficked by millions of people, like Collective Evolution and others. There's a lot of places where you can get advertising out. Just make sure it's to the right audience and that you're spending the money the right way. I kind of go over with people on a case-by-case basis what I think makes sense for them when we work together, and also advertising mistakes I've made.
Awesome.
One of the key things is don't forget PR, free advertisement. You could write an article, you could get some newspaper to cover you, something. There's always an opportunity for free press.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you alone have a lot of connections. I know you say Collective Evolution, Futurism. So don't be afraid to kind of reach out to your internal network and really use the people right around you. Not use them, but kind of just like use their connections and see how it can best serve the audience that they already serve. Quick question. Have you ever been to Portugal before?
No, I haven't been to Portugal before. It's on my list.
Awesome. Well, there's a retreat over there waiting for you whenever you're ready to put one together.
I was going to say I need a reason to go to Portugal. It sounds like we got one.
That's great. Yeah, so if anybody else has any questions on the side, that kind of sums up the ones that came through. So, yeah, I went ahead and linked over the link to the Retreat Lab to give you guys a better idea of Ed's course and what he's putting together and how it's kind of 10-week live training. I assume that each class will be filmed and sent to everybody that attends.
Yep.
So, yeah, if there's any other questions, please feel free to put them in the section to the right. And you're with a retreat and event master working with him. I know this firsthand. So feel free to ask any.
Thanks, Garrett. Excellent. We'll see if any other questions pop up here. Also, when you take a look at the website for the Retreat Lab course, there'll be updates. You'll find out about the course info, when it's launching. As I mentioned, the first one is in August. I urge people to try to take the first one because I don't know when I'm going to do a next one. I'm pretty eager to do the live mastermind as well, so we'll be posting that up on there.
So is there any other locations that you have presented events or retreats at, Ed?
Wow. Yeah, I've done retreats and events in the United States, in New York, in San Francisco, in Northern California, Mexico, Costa Rica. I've done events in Europe. Yeah, a lot of places. Burning Man, which is in the middle of the desert. For those who haven't been there, that's one of the places I got my PhD in the event space. Having the privilege to work with the founders and learn about one of the most complicated events in the world. But yeah, I've done events all over. It really excites me to travel and help people with this stuff.
Awesome. For how easy it is to get an article published, I guess I can kind of help out that one as well. It's really just kind of putting the time and energy into it as well. Like Ed was saying, it's just kind of reaching out to people and writing articles.
Yeah, it's if you write a good article and good content, there's usually people who want to share that. It's of value. You're giving some piece of education. So just looking at who your audience that you want to reach is and what they read, where they go, websites, newspapers, and you could see about that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have people that produce events?
Both. I produce events myself. I work with a team that does the nitty-gritty production from rentals and other things. And when we do international events in other countries, I keep a database of people I've worked with who are awesome. But mostly, a lot of times, I do the hands-on production.
Awesome. And then what is the name of the villa that you had in the picture? A really fancy one.
Oh, the villa is called Punto de Vista. It's an amazing, amazing villa in Costa Rica. And if you're interested in doing a retreat there, just reach out. They give us crazy discounts. They're amazing people. And it's one of the things I love doing with clients is helping them find a location, getting them an awesome discount on that location. We had a travel agency for some years, so we know how this whole thing works and how to get the best price for our clients. And we'll also teach you how to talk to these places and how to find them and all of that. But I have a few up my sleeve that I love, like that one.
That's awesome. Yeah, so in the link that we sent, it actually kind of gives you better information, the retreat lab, and actual contact form. And if Ed, you want to put your email in the actual description on the side, then people can reach out to you that way. But also the link, I'll go ahead and repost the link right now. But there's a form there that you can kind of continue this conversation if you have any extra questions you might want to ask Ed. And just like really, he's here to kind of add value, and I can just see through this webinar that he's enjoying. I'm enjoying seeing the feedback from everybody. So if there's no more questions, then feel free to shoot him an email or follow the link, and we'll keep this conversation going because having run an event myself, it's pretty amazing to bring people all from around the world to one place and kind of really mastermind on ideas that you're passionate about and other people are as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and when you go to that link, you can see the various buttons to learn more info, to submit an application, and I'll be able to answer that. So if you haven't seen my email in the chat, just feel free to use the website, and we'll get to all of you.
Awesome. Well, we will send a replay of this webinar to everybody if they want to watch later at a different time, and we'll also send a link of all the slides as well, so you guys can have for reference, and make sure you set up your next retreat for a huge success.
Awesome. This is a lot of fun. Thank you, Garrett.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. And thanks for everybody. All right, everybody. Have a great one. Bye.
Take care.